seemed like in about a 4-month period, we saw 1 Whipit, and then we saw 3 Whipits, and then we saw Alulas, and it just seemed like it was. I don't think I've ever seen one kind of plane sort of get so popular so quickly. I mean, usually like DLGs took 5 years or something to catch on, but this was like 5 months. So I thought that was pretty interesting. And the other thing that got me interested was I've been thinking about how to build a glider that will work for everybody. And I just kept getting stuck on these 60-inch gliders, DLG type things. And then I'm realizing it's probably going to be something like this, maybe with some electronics on it or something to make it really simple. And then John was nice enough to let me try to fly his Whipit. And I was totally surprised that 2 things. One, you can launch it quite high just by giving it a toss, and almost easier than a DLG in terms of altitude with no muscle at all. And the other thing is it was actually relatively stable. You'd think they'd be so twitchy you couldn't look for a thermal or anything. And actually one flight I did catch a little lift and kept it going. So I think it's a really exciting area for a hobby. And so I wanted to kind of go through this. And I think what I'm going to do is this is very informal. And I wanted to, I'll lead you through some questions, and we'll kind of just bounce from each panelist, and we'll kind of cover it. I think the first thing is talk about your models or some of the models that you know about, and just give kind of a quick overview of what types of micro gliders are. And are they called micro gliders? I don't even know. So why don't we start with you, Kevin?
Okay, yeah, I bought a handful. I mean, the cool thing about the smaller gliders is 4 out of the 5 of these I brought over here in the trunk of my old Porsche. So that's one nice thing about them is they're super, super portable. If I were to just run through real quickly. So this is the thing that's probably transitional. This is a Dream Flight Libel. It's all made out of EPP, so it's EPO. It's very durable. This is actually, if you're interested in doing discus launch but have never done it before, this is a great plane to start with because it's not a 60-inch. I'm going to try not to hit you in the head. It's like a 48-inch or something like that, so it's like a 1.2 meter, which makes it a little easier before you get the hang of the spinning motion. With a 60-inch, it's really easy to whack the tip as you're spinning around, and often that destroys the wing. This is a lot easier because you're less likely to hit it, and if you do hit it, it doesn't really matter. It's just going to bounce and flex and whatnot. So in that respect, it's great. It's very durable. It's very inexpensive. Flies pretty well. People like them a lot as a light slope plane. Yeah, I like it, but it's been overshadowed by some other planes. But so the things I like about it, flies really well. Things I don't like about it, the peg's really too far forward to get a good launch out of it. So I'd recommend if you start with this, you'll get to the point where you can only go so far with where this peg is. Then you either want to move into a full-size DLG or maybe start trying to move the peg back. But it's kind of cool the way it's designed. It's really nicely engineered. It goes together really, really quickly. Servos just pop in. I think this is like $120, $130 for the airframe. And on the website, this is a company that's in Goleta, right near Santa Barbara. Just a 2-guy company, a local guy who grew up there, went to school there, and has always flown. They did a really nice job with the engineering. Everything just sort of fits together really well. There's some plastic bits, some foam bits. You can build it in like an hour, and they'll sell a package of gear with some cheap little servos that fit perfectly and a battery that fits perfectly. If you get creative, you can get this is a Spectrum 4-channel, and that is enough to fly on it if you assign the channels right. You have to get a little creative with getting it to fit in there. They say it doesn't fit, but it does if you work at it enough. And it's just a nice, simple thing. It's just a little NiCad battery, or NIM. So anyhow, I can pass these around if you're curious too.
That's called a Libel.
That's called a Libel. And you can color them with a marker, so that's cool. The other plane that I have here, also by Dream Flight, this is called an Alula. You've probably seen one of these. This is the latest version called an Alula Trek. Again, really nicely done. The things are molded really well. Whole thing goes together super fast. It's got a little spot where you can put a little ballast for when you're flying on the slope, which is mostly what I do with this. But honestly, between the two, this is, I think, $90, which seems like a lot for what it is, but as well as it flies and as durable and versatile as it is, I love this plane. I leave it in the trunk of my car. It's fantastic on a light slope and light lift. If the wind's howling, it's still fantastic. It's just amazing the flight envelope that it can fly in. And I've hand launched and thermaled this plane. You throw it from the wingtip, and even on the slope, it's nice. There's a lot of slopes where this is great for a slope you never dream about flying another plane on. But because you can throw it from the tip, you can launch it, so you can launch it out beyond the tree line, get it out there. You can land it just by crashing it. It's a great, great plane. And yet it flies well enough that if you can spot a thermal and throw into it, you can spec this plane out. So I love this plane. Really, really.
Looks like it'll fit into a trunk with luggage as well.
As is, I throw this in the trunk. I mostly don't take it apart, but it's called a trek because if you just unpop the clevis here, you can see there's a brake line right here. There's a spar that runs here. You know, let's just do it. Let's pop this off here. We gotta get out of this. Oh, come on. Okay, so pop the clevis off. I just have a little bit of tape on here just to encourage it from. Oh, I didn't bring my screwdriver. Maybe I'm not going to do it. But anyhow, at this point, it's magnetic in the back here, and there's just a little clamp that you just tighten down. You loosen it up, pop it off of here, and you slide the whole wing panel off. So the whole thing packs in a box, and it's just a little bit bigger than that one little wing panel. The tail just pops right off, slides right off. Super flat. You can put the whole plane in a backpack, just a kind of normal size backpack. So this is awesome.
Okay, why don't we let the other guys talk about these two planes, but maybe any other thoughts on this one? Like, does it glide pretty well?
It glides pretty well. Yeah, it glides
so
pretty well.
Theoretically launch.
I don't know if you could throw them. I weighed it just the other day. Both of these play this. Surprisingly, the powered Radian, micro Radian, is actually lighter than a Whipit. I was surprised to see that. These are both about 42.
I'm going to let these guys.
Yeah.
That's their only
No, I was just going to say weight-wise, these are about 42 grams. This is about 60 sitting as it is.
So it's kind of more brute force.
Yeah, exactly. But I think it would be great for just kind of toss and steer a little bit.
Okay.
With the 60 gram though, you can see he taped up one wing and not the other. So the foam wing that's not taped is very floppy.
Oh yeah, that was a test bed too, to see how much strength it had.
And if you can't
Huge amount.
around,
It's crazy, see what a little packing tape
yeah.
did. Yeah.
Okay. In fact, I'll mention I had a Weasel Pro, and it didn't actually fly. To me, it didn't fly that well. It needed a kind of a hurricane to fly, but it was totally covered with packing tape, and it looked a lot like this. The proud moment of my life was at one of these auctions. I sold it to Bob Gallons. How cool is that? I built a plane and Bob bought it. So. Okay, Eric, you want to talk about the Radian?
Okay, I have a little UMX Radian here, and Kevin brought his too, but his doesn't have these bubbles under the stickers because he poked them and
I poked the holes in.
squeezed out the gas from under there. Anyway, I brought my radio so I could show the stabilization. It has what they call it, AS3X or something like that.
Yeah.
Yep.
Anyway,
Yeah, and that's what I was interested in, something to help, the Klutzes of the world fly these things. Oh, thank you.
And like this, it comes with, it's all set up. All you have to do is stick the wing on. It comes with the receiver. It's got a built-in stabilizer. And the 2 linear servos, all the controls are hooked up.
Flies.
Okay.
So there's really nothing to build.
all right, now it's working. So you can see the rudder. If I move it this way, the rudder goes opposite. If I do it quickly, it's hard to see, but anyway. And it does the elevator as well.
So it just straightens out the fly
So
from the.
you can tell it's wiggling because I'm wiggling it. If I set it down, it becomes quiet.
It gets rid of the micro bumps that you fly through, and you can do it much faster than you could see the plane and correct.
Yeah.
It kind of corrects when it's on, so it flies like a plane that's, yay big. So it just makes it fly.
It makes it very forgiving for CG as well. Because of that.
It's true.
Anyway, I've barely flown it. I want to try it in my backyard sometimes, but there's nothing but gravel to land it on. And so far, it's not very beat up. So Anyway, it's a small little plane, it glides pretty well.
Does that transmitter give you the three position, beginner, intermediate, and
No.
how I control it?
I don't think so. I mean,
The
maybe you
transmitter
could
that
tone down.
comes with the little micro radian has a three position switch on it, or mechanic switch.
I don't think the micro radian does that. Some of the other ones do.
Some of the others do. I think it works on that. Oh, I'm not sure.
Yeah. You can do it. Presumably it's a follow-on topic, but you can program the receiver in these things to turn off the stabilization, and I've flown one of those. And I would love to do that, because on a calm day, if nothing else, the noise bothers me.
Yeah.
But I also just hate the thought of it, taking away information in terms of what the air is doing.
And also you're a better pilot than
Yeah,
it's probably
yeah.
designed for, yeah.
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 I think what you're talking about is you take your hands off, and no matter what attitude it's in, it goes straight and level.
The little tiny transmitter has a three position switch, and then has a little pink switch that's flying the blue super cover.
The Super Cubs have that.
And it went crazy, and I pulled that emergency thing, and it whoop, came right back and landed in front of me.
Yeah, the little Sport Cup has that transmitter with the switch
Yeah.
and the panic button.
Yeah.
The panic button is crazy. The plane can be doing anything, and you push the panic button, and within like a tenth of a second, the plane is flying straight and level.
Yeah.
It's like violent, the maneuver it does to get straight and level again.
It's pretty handy.
Yeah.
John, you
By
want
the way, how much was that?
I believe it's $89.99.
With radio and everything?
Not that, but it's
No,
ready to
the
fly.
receiver, yeah.
It comes with a battery, it has a little USB charger in the box.
Gyros, yeah.
Oh, they give you the 20C battery with that, go buy the 45C battery, the 45.
Battery looks like this.
Yeah,
It looks like a chunk of chewing gum.
yeah, but what's the C rating on it? It'll fly a lot better than that.
This
35.
says 25C.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
if you-
25.
I tried mine with a 25C and it would hardly fly. Put a 45C in it, really performs nice.
Is it the same size battery, but
Same thing.
lower,
Different C.
lower internal
Internal
resistance or
So
something?
now we know.
Anyway, it says 3C maximum charge rate. It's a one cell, 150 milliamp hour battery.
$2.
No, don't. Buy the 465 or the 469 battery, it'll fly a lot better.
Okay, now let's talk about the Whipit and the creme de la creme.
The Whipit is what got us all started here talking about these things. And let me say it first, we said micro. When you say DLG, you're talking about 1.5 meter. Now, we're getting smaller, we're getting down to maybe a half of a meter. So this is about a half of a meter. I think this costs $60. It's a full glider. It's got the receiver in it, the servos in it, and all you need is a $2 battery, and you can fly this thing.
Oh, yeah, you don't need 45.
These fly very well. We found out if you put a launch button on your transmitter, you can really throw these things high, and you can turn them pretty well. This is a good beginner airplane. Anybody can launch it, and I like to talk about launching. Somebody asked me, do you just spin around in a circle? And the answer is no, it's a whippet. So you just take the thing and you just whip it, and that's just a little bit of a throw.
And it goes.
Now, I will say
It's
that
100
a
feet
lot
up.
of people put their thumb on the top of the wing and they throw it like that. That to me is a little uncomfortable. The experts put their thumb on the bottom of the wing and throw it, and they do very well. It's uncomfortable for me. So what I do is this. A Roman ordering 5 beers, I just pinch it like that. Okay, wait, got it? I just take it between my 2 fingers like this, and then my thumb does not really pinch the foam. Also, people tend to launch like that, but I find that uncomfortable. So I just put my hand at my side, pinch it like that, and just whip it like that, and it'll straighten out almost immediately. Very cheap, $60. Can't beat it. If anybody wants to fly it, just get a hold of me, meet me at Kennedy any Sunday, and you're welcome to fly it all day. The one thing is it requires a Spectrum radio. So you either have to have a Spectrum or any friend who's got a Spectrum radio. It's easy to bind and fly, and you're welcome to use my radios to fly this or yours.
And that's 2 channel right over here.
Yeah.
let me retract the 45C, I forgot you don't have a motor on that thing. That's right. Okay, 45C.
It's also got the stabilization.
No, it doesn't.
It doesn't?
Just
No.
interesting.
Oh, yeah.
No, it doesn't.
Probably don't want it on hand.
It doesn't need it, yeah.
I will say, I'll give you one building tip. And if you take a look, to build this, all you have to do is attach the wing. And on top of the wing, there are 4 screws. If you try to put those in, I guarantee you're gonna strip them out and break the fuselage, because the holes that the screws go into are very tight. So before you put the wing on, you take a screw, stick it in a bar of soap, put it in without the wing on, turn it in a full turn, back it out a quarter, turn it in a full turn, back it out a quarter. And then you do that to every one of the screws, and then you put the wing on from there.
The screws are really cheap and strip easily too, that's the
Yeah.
other thing, yeah.
And I even bore the holes out a little bit.
Yeah.
Full turn, half turn, full turn, half a turn.
This plane has screws also, but I've never used them. I just slide the wing into the middle and give it a toss.
Me too, I just tape it on, because this wing will tend to slide back and forth. So if anybody's interested, give me a call, you can fly this thing all you want.
What does it weigh?
1.125 ounces, I think.
1.25.
43 grams is what mine weighs, yeah.
Oh, okay, 28 grams is an ounce. Want to feel it? You can't break it.
That's without the battery.
It's just Scotch tape.
Yeah, but the battery is.
So when I talk about this, this is the one I'm interested in.
Well,
Here's a battery.
Let me just throw in one thing before you go to that one, because I'm really interested in that too. The other thing we do with this, talk about light slope. If the wind's really light, of course you can fly it just as is. But if you put a penny, which is 2.5 grams, or a nickel, which is 5 grams, right on top, snug right up against those two, just tape it on there. This thing is a hoot on a little slope. You can just find the tiniest little spot, the side of a building practically or whatever, and just try it. And it's amazing how tightly this thing turns. It's got a pretty fair amount of ego. So this is a lot of fun on the slope too.
And they're small, so you can fly them almost anywhere. Throw them in the backseat of your car, parking lot, middle of the street, anything. So that is a good toy. And once again, with these micro DLGs, they don't have launching pads. You just grab them with your thumb.
It's got a battery. It's a battery.
It's got a battery in it.
Yeah, if you take the nose cone off, yeah, you can see the slot in the bottom.
Yeah.
And you just stick the battery in there.
Okay, so
Simple.
let's keep moving.
Okay,
on.
lastly, I wrote this because I was saying that DLGs are 1.5 meter, and we've got the half meter, we've got the 1.3 meter. Now, this is a 1 meter. This is called a mini Q carbon. It's 1 meter. I think you can see why they call it carbon. They sell these with fiber wings for, I think, $240. And then this one is an extra $60 or $80. It might be $320 or something. So this is the carbon version. It's ailerons, elevator, no rudder. It comes with everything you see built except the tail. They give you a piece of balsa wood, and you have to sand it down, cover it with what you like, and mount it. And then you mount your radio gear inside. And if you take a look at it, you'll see that this is a piece of like plywood, but it's got a hole in the center, and the gear goes in the top and hangs out the bottom. So it's all compact. There's a 450 battery, 4-channel receiver, and then I've got the servos jammed in, 2 of them here, and 1 of them on the bottom. So this is a 1 meter, cute little airplane, flies fast, flies well, and I had some handouts for it that I conveniently left at home.
So can you
It's got
thermal
about,
that? Is it?
oh yeah, it's about 4.5 ounces per square foot. Sort of thermal, but it's a little fast and squirrely. But if nothing else, it's nice to hang on the wall. It's kind of cute. So if you want to look at that, I'll pass it around. Just pull the nose off, and you can see the radio here. So as I said, this is a little more expensive. This is $240. But if you get the carbon version, it's somewhere around 280 to 300, I think.
Okay, so my next question was, where do you fly them? You started to talk about it, but why don't you elaborate on that? Like, what kind of space do you need for these?
For the Whipit, almost nothing. You can do that in your street. For this, I usually go to Kennedy, which is pretty big.
Kind of
I
a
don't
DLG.
need that much room. Dartmouth is way too big.
It's like a
So
baseball
you can fly
diamond.
it almost anywhere, and you
Yeah.
can fly it on the slopes.
But these are almost like a backyard or a.
These are, I think these are amazing. I goof around when I'm out at Rancho, and I can do a turn in easily the size of this room. I can just go around and around like I'm in a barrel. And so this, to me, more than even any of the others, partly because you have the power, so you can kind of use that to your advantage. But this can fly in almost no space whatsoever, and it's super
Gymnasiums.
stable too with the stabilization.
It's good in the gymnasium, to give you an idea of the size. And I didn't, lastly, I mentioned the throwing pegs. If you take a look at this, you'll see what they did on the tip of the wing. They did not put a peg on it. They just made a little blip that comes up here and one on the bottom. So you launch it like that. It's kind of a cute design.
So you got one for left-handers on the other, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Left hand, right hand.
It doesn't matter.
Okay, and Eric, you're talking about launching off to the back porch. That's the limitation, one of the limitations.
Yeah, well, I live where there's a canyon and a creek going down, and I've seen hawks working it quite a few times. But I haven't flown this there. I have this little electric platform on the power used to sell. I've flown that off there quite a few times, but it's nowhere near as much fun as flying a glide. So.
But it's just, you don't have landing spot, right? So you lose it.
Yeah, the landing spot is a little dicey. It's gravel, and I don't want to scratch it up. So
I've had this about a month, and it's never touched the ground. I just catch it.
You can't.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it's so slow and stable and easy to control. Catching it is no problem at all.
Okay.
So if you need a toy, they're cheap, they're fun, you can fly them anywhere.
This is interesting.
It's,
This, I gotta say too, I think this is overlooked by a lot of people. I actually think this thermal is better than the Whipit even.
Really?
Yeah. It's a little bit lighter. It's a similar wing area, but a higher aspect ratio. You turn the motor off on it. We were talking about how we go out to Rancho at sundown. You get in there just before the sun goes down behind the hill. They haven't locked the gate to get in. They don't lock the gate to get out for about another 45 minutes or an hour. And yeah, there's a bunch of folks, and even in that light, the sun's already down, but the parking lot's still a little warm. You can float around for minutes at a time with this thing. And I'm very impressed in terms of, using this not only just as a sport plane, but as a thermal plane.
And that's called a mini Radian?
This is called a UMX Radian. UMX is what they
Radian or
call their
Radian?
ultra micro.
Yeah, and that's all horizon mounted.
Yeah.
Okay. So and as far as how to fly, any tips on controlling these things? Any?
just want to laugh.
Okay. But it's a little squirrelier than the planes we're used to, right? So you've gotta calm down or something.
Yeah, it depends on the plane. I think the Whipits and the Radian are both very easy to fly. They're just two-channel. I find that I fly, I'm used to using my left thumb when I thermal in particular. So I also mix my left thumb into, the channel, because otherwise I go to start turning and there's nothing there. So in my case, either stick will turn, and then the elevator is on the right. The one thing I will say about the Alula, it's a great plane, but they don't like to slow down. It's a fast plane, so you just have to keep that in mind.
So a beginner would have a harder time with that.
A harder time, yeah, definitely. Yeah, much harder.
Okay.
I'll make a comment. I remember the first hand launch class, the grenade launch ones. I had a breed yourself that I didn't hand launch because I didn't want to throw my arm out. But I did a mini high start, and I had a heck of a time with that plane because I knew it was light, it wasn't as light as these, but I didn't worry about it. I ran into something. They can do all sorts of crazy things you wouldn't try with
Crashes.
Something with a 2 meter to 100-inch wingspan weighs you know, 15, 20 ounces.
Yeah.
So that way they're a heck of a lot of fun to fly because you don't care.
That's
You're
true.
not gonna-
Kids fly these, land them upside down, and they just pop.
You're not gonna hurt it.
It's like a white flop.
You're not gonna hurt it.
Well, you know,
Which is
this
great
is
for
where,
kids like me.
I mean, you know, this is where should be starting the kids, you know, these airplanes. Because they're real airplanes, they're fully controllable, and, I mean, even if you use rudder elevator, that's even, you know, easier for the kids to learn on.
Plus,
They don't have a bunch of money tied up in.
Stabilization built into.
Oh, yeah.
Mini
What's the
radio.
least expensive transmitter we'd be looking at for one of those?
Oh, boy, I use Spectrum radio, must be cheap,
Like
$500 maybe?
I don't remember, I'm not on their prices.
You get the little $20 radio that comes with that when you buy the whole thing.
You can buy it with a radio too?
Yeah, for $20 more, you get a radio.
$20 more, you get a transmitter.
You get a transmitter that has a 3-position, you know, beginner, pro, and that has a panic switch on it. And I think it'll work with that one. I know the one I got with a Cub works with my gliders.
You can definitely use the one, I don't, again, I'm not sure, I don't know if they sell it with it, but any of the Spectrum transmitters. So I bought a bunch of these park flyers, little Cubs, you know, little Taylor, you know, whatever, these little things, that little Stearman, that's a great little plane, a little biplane Stearman.
Yeah.
But all of the transmitters that come with those little planes, I wouldn't trust them at a distance necessarily, but they're great for smaller planes. And what I use them for, they're really light and easy to hold. They're shaped like a game controller. And so I use it, I buddy box it. I wirelessly buddy box it to my DX9, and that's what I use with kids. Because I don't have to, you know, when I used the buddy box with the cable, the kid would always be wandering off, you know, as I was trying to land or something. And this way, they're not tethered, and if they drop the thing out, it doesn't.
And that's not addition, that's built in the DX9, huh? I didn't know.
DX9 does wireless buddy box, and it's fantastic because you can tell which of the channels the student controls. So I start them off only with rudder at first,
Oh.
and I control the rest. Then when they get the hang of that, then I'll give them elevator. So, yeah,
Okay.
it's great.
Anything else about radio setup that we should mention? Any, like, do you put in any expo or DR or anything special? You're not thought about it?
I haven't done anything special with this. And the bind procedure is just hold the button when you turn it on and it doesn't, you don't have to unplug a bind thing or anything.
That's nice.
It
I
happens
unplug.
automatically.
And I will say that because they're Spectrum compatible, if you buy one and you don't need a radio, you always find somebody with the Spectrum, ask them if you can bind to it and use their transmitter. So to get started, it's only the initial $60.
Yeah, or the $20 radio. That's really amazing.
Don't expect my broken tail too much.
Yeah.
It's been broken a couple of
It's
times.
better if you use a buddy box, because then a good transmitter can take over.
Yeah.
The first micro radio, mini radio I got, had the antenna come out of the receiver and then it doubled back on itself, so every once in a while I go, go vertical.
Oh yeah, in terms of durability, the first day that I had this, I went to throw it, and the strap, I heard this beep as I threw it, and then it went up pretty high, because you can throw pretty high, and it just went up, and it came straight down, just, and I realized that the beep was my strap on my transmitter turning off my transmitter as I throw the thing. So he got and all it took, it cracked right here, and, you know, some CA, and I was flying 5 minutes later, so, you know, they are durable.
I do the discus launch with a mini radio. Not very hard,
Sure, yeah.
but just get it away from you.
Yeah,
Oh, and then the motor, you take the
Turn
motor,
the
the rest
motor
of
off.
it.
yeah.
Yeah, okay.
I do have one radio chip, and that's with the Whipit. If you trim it out so it flies, when you launch it, it's gonna go on a trajectory like that and roll over on its back. So make sure you have a zoom button, which means you push the button on to launch it, and it'll just shoot perfectly straight. And when you get near the top, let go. It only takes a tiny bit of down elevator, somewhere between 10 and 20%. I usually stick at about 15%. And it's just enough to make it go up like a rocket without rolling over on its back.
It's interesting, because I'm in the opposite camp. I think I probably have my CG back, because it'll go up straight. And what I do, actually, I have a momentary that is a little bit up, so that when I throw it, it rotates
Yeah,
up, and then I let
it's a
go,
DLG.
and then it zooms on its own, so. it's
Can I fly
interesting.
yours?
Sure,
I gotta try that.
yeah.
That's more like a DLG launch, right? 'Cause
Yeah.
then usually that's, you
Yeah.
get the short period and then release the button.
Yeah.
Okay, how about thermally? Any experiences with thermaling these things? Do you lose them, or do you, are they hard to catch?
I do. I lose it. My eyesight is not that good.
I have not lost one, but I have a couple of friends who have literally lost them. They have flown them out of sight. They flew them so high up into a thermal, and they don't, these Whippets especially, they don't penetrate very well, so you have to be careful if you do chase it downwind, it's easy to lose. And Murdad has lost 2 of these.
Yeah, that's right. We got 2 in a row, I think.
How about, from a range standpoint, the receivers are robust?
I've never run into a range problem. The planes are small enough that it's, kind of limits how far
You
you
don't
want to
wanna-
fly.
you can't see it anyway.
Yeah, like I say, I have always used the DX9, which has an excellent transmitter because it's got the second, the horizontal one.
Antenna here and.
And there, yeah.
Oh, I see.
So
Dual
if you were to
purpose.
use one of the cheapo ones at a distance, that might be risky. I don't know, but I only use them to buddy bop to here, so they only have to talk that far. And then the main radio does the hard work. But yeah, they're so small. I think they'd be fine if you were a cheap radio.
Okay, the other thing I was gonna ask is I don't see a lot of repairs on these things.
I don't crash.
So you don't crash.
Yeah.
So not a lot of repairs are needed.
This
Any
one?
Gorilla Glue or?
This one actually was spotless until we were flying with the Cubs Cub Scouts the other week. I was going to try. We're flying in the woods, which isn't really a great place to fly. But I was going to see if I could do a demo over the parking lot, and so I took it out of the car and I just gave it a nice little test glide, and I must have previously been broken because just in the course of launching it, the mount for the horizontal exploded and the horizontal came off and it came straight down into so that's a good ad for that as well. This plane came straight down into the parking lot.
From how many feet up?
Well, that's high as I threw it, so it was probably 100 feet maybe or something like that.
That would.
And the tail was already broken before it hit the ground. That's why it hit the ground. And all I did was I just C80 glued that on, and I think that's going to work. The plastic piece here had broken in a couple spots, so I C80'd that, but that's pretty much. And one of the carbon push rods snapped, so I have to find the right size of that to fix it. But
And then you don't
pretty
break,
good.
you don't break the wings? So
I've
far?
never, not so far.
Yeah,
I
so
don't-
the foam must really be getting tough.
Yeah. Yeah, these are made, both of these are made from expanded polyolefin, I think is the name of it, EPO. And it's a perfect thing to make these kinds of airplanes out of because it's almost as stiff as styrofoam. But styrofoam just just cracks and explodes. And yet it's not quite as flexible as EPP. It's not quite as durable as EPP, but it's like the perfect spot in between because it's stiff enough to fly well and it's flexible enough that it doesn't break. So.
Okay, so what do you guys predict are going to be the future of these things? I mean, it seems like they've developed quite a bit in the last year or two.
The Whipit has taken the world by storm. So there's a fellow in the RC groups who is building a carbon version of it with micro servos.
Yeah, so I thought that's what that was, but it's this size. It's really small.
About that size. He's going to make them a couple different sizes, but you can see the future when you go out to Kennedy, and everybody out there's got exotic sailplanes or exotic DLGs. They're all flying Whippets.
Yeah,
So
right.
It's just a fun toy.
Somebody with $1,000 DLG plane is having more fun.
He
with
sets a
toys.
snipe on the ground and flies the Whippet.
Yeah. So they're here to stay. And
It's just such a nice size,
Yeah.
dirty cheap.
And do you think electronics like the stabilization, things like that, are going to be more so in these things, or do you think maybe it's not even needed on some lower levels?
So I recently flew a Radian, Khazra, if you guys know Khazra. He's got a Radian that has a couple of mods on it. One is he went in with the programmer and programmed the receiver so that you could, first of all, you can adjust the stabilization rates, how much they try to help. But what he did is he set it up so that the gear switch turns the stabilization on and off. And so the other thing he did while he had it apart, we were talking about screws. There are screws, I did put the screws in mine, maybe I shouldn't have. But what he did while he had it apart, he just put a couple of tiny magnets on the wing and on the fuse. And it's a perfect solution because it holds it plenty steady for flying. And
I
yet
mean, it can slip out.
he just takes it out, slips it out, and it's really small. It's just a
Yeah.
tiny little box.
So
How do
yours
you
just
box
uses
it?
friction. Yours uses friction to slide in and out?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's, the little gizmo here is a plastic thing, so it doesn't crush the wing if you put the screws in, but all I do is look through the bottom and align it with the holes that are there. And you don't sidearm launch this, so it's not gonna fall out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I just put it in and.
But I suppose magnets would make it really just set.
Yeah. So, having flown this with the stabilization and without, it flies really well with stabilization on. I mean, it's much easier to fly. It's not that it's hard to fly, but it's a lot more twitchy.
Yeah.
And really anybody can fly this
Yeah.
thing with the stabilization. So in terms of the future, the stabilization allows small planes to fly well. And small planes are cheap and easy to transport, take tiny little, few dollar batteries to run on, and they don't tend to break when you crash them. So, I mean, they're pretty wonderful. I did like switching it off, and I am going to endeavor to program mine so I can do that. Because when it is still, I'd rather have it turned off for a couple of reasons. One, I want the information. I want to see what the air is doing. Two, I hate the jittery noise over my head all the time. But the other thing too is that when you are thermaling it, the problem with the stabilization is you're burning power with the servos jittering back and forth all the time. So you have to be mindful of the fact that even if you're in thermal and you're in great air, eventually you're going to run out of battery, and so you have to keep an eye on that a little bit. So if you turn the stabilization on, the battery
Would
lasts
a
much
vario
longer.
help at all? I mean, imagine you can see all the rises pretty clearly, can't you? So you don't need any audio input.
Well, the thing about a Vario is you're not gonna be very far up.
Yeah.
And a Vario is best when the plane's sky
Far
down
away,
and you
yeah.
can't see what it's doing.
Yeah.
You're pretty close to yourself, you don't get terribly high. Because if you get in a good thermal, it'll just suck it right up before you notice it. But stabilization, the place I see it is in the quarter scale power down at Tomcats. Just about everybody down there's got a stabilizer. And it, not so much the 2D. The 2D says you take your hands off the stick and it'll fly straight and level, but they like the 3D. They get into a bank and take their hands off, and 3D says, okay, whatever attitude I'm in, I'm gonna maintain that. So.
And they use like micro levers to adjust, is that how they do it? Or they don't have gyro, and they call them gyros, but I'm sure they're not spinning.
Your solid state gyro is the same as like what's in your phone.
So they are, but they're micro levers,
They're
right?
gyro.
They go.
Well, they're actually not levers because you unplug your ailerons, rudder, and elevator from the receiver, and you plug them into the stabilizer, and then plug the
No,
stabilizer.
I know, but
into
the electronics inside.
They're micro.
Yeah, that's what I thought. They're little like diving boards that are.
No,
No, it's like,
Oh, so
They're
they're
all,
spinning.
they're all solid state, no, they're solid state. There's no moving parts,
No moving parts at all.
no moving parts, solid states, gyros.
But how do they sense up and down?
It's magic.
Okay, it's magic. I'll have to Google that later.
I have no idea, does anybody know the theory of
I don't know, I would imagine it's G sensors.
That's
Take
a
a chance on it.
I think,
Yeah,
I
it's an
actually think I'm
integrated
right. I think
accelerometer.
they're nano diving, little diving boards that wiggle.
Uh-uh.
No.
Yeah.
Okay.
They're moving parts.
They might be optical.
Those are micro, very micro little beams inside the IC that flex. I saw the development of those at MIT back in early 2000s, late 1900s. And I saw one sensor that was developed that was mounted on a marble cement block about the size of this table. This is in a building at MIT, and that sensor sense the motion of somebody walking across that cement floor. So it was, it's amazing what it does. So
But it's
it
a
is
G-
also, it
G
is, a-
sensor.
I'm sorry?
It's a G sensor.
Yes,
Yeah.
put a little beam in there. It's,
A beam.
you know, just cantilever beam.
Like a little diamond board.
You mean a light beam or a regular?
No,
physical
just a
beam?
physical
A
beam.
physical beam.
Yeah, gold probably, it's etched
That's what
into
you were
the.
saying.
Yeah, it's part of the
into
silicon.
IC.
I'm guessing the ones that now are, they don't have any moving parts. I mean, I've seen them advertised as no moving parts.
So,
Maybe
Well,
something-
for us, it
Well,
wouldn't
Well,
be
there are
moving.
solid, they are solid
It
state
might
materials
be
that
like-
are sensitive to
But I-
pressure,
but I-
that's all you need.
Yeah, that's right.
when I was
Yeah.
at Stanford, they were doing, they were working on optical gyros. They'd use a little piece of fiber optic.
Okay, well, that's beyond the scope of today's time.
Why? Why?
We are into magic.
Yes.
Yes. Do magic, these stabilization happens. Any other questions? Okay, let's give the guys a round of applause.
Honestly, the truth of the matter is, they've trained a little ant. It sits in there. He's
He
actually
controls
flying
the
the
airplane.
airplane. He's like, oh, flying the airplane.
No, it's a GMO, it's a genetically modified organism.
Yeah.
GMA.
I do want to mention one more thing about the flying this that I meant to mention, which is the Whipit is very cool, but in bad conditions you do a lot of throwing and you don't do a lot of flying. The interesting thing about the Radian that I like to do is you can, even if there isn't a lot of great thermal activity, you can throttle it way back, like just barely running, and then just see how long you can keep the thing in the air by finding good air. So even though you're not finding boomer thermals where the thermal alone is keeping you up, it's good practice, I think, to find these low-level pockets of lift and exploit
Not
them
coming down.
with just
Yeah.
throttle just barely cracked on at all. So that's a fun way, and then it'll last forever. You can fly for 20 minutes or more.
Right. If you want to take a look at them, come on up, and thanks to the guys. Okay.
Would it be easier to find a flying field now?
Yeah.